Hey, what's up guys, how's it going? So we are going to be talking about the Mythic update today. Of course, you guys have probably heard about it. Now, of course, I can go ahead and kind of show it to you. Alright, the free-to-play players in this game, of course, I know some of you guys out there are probably rioting that, oh my god, I cannot get legendaries. Look, that's not what's going on here, alright? If anything, alright, what they've essentially done is now there is a tier above Legendary now called Mythic. Now, the one little trick to this is that the Blazing Embers are now going to be the key to this new Mythic rank. Of course, like any other pay-to-win update, for that matter, obviously they've added an impact where now you can kind of see where, here we're doing 25, and it adds basically 10%. Alright, for the most part, I've noticed that most of the gear in the game, for the most part, has pretty much a 10% increase from where it was on Legendary. So, like, if you look here, okay, it goes from 35 to 49. 15 to 21. 17 to 23. Yeah, there's definitely an increase there, okay? And it's by no means, in some cases, it can be as much as 40%, but overall, all right, you can kind of see that this update, it pretty much applies to literally every single gear piece in the game. Now, I'm sure some of you guys are probably thinking, okay, well, what does this mean for me, the guy on the very bottom of the totem pole? Not much, really. Honestly, if anything, right, all this does now is that basically this update here that's coming out, all right, will be your only opportunity to really get a shot at these as a free-to-play player. You are not going to get access to these unless you pay. That's really the in-game story of what this is. Just like any tier upgrade, right? Really, to be honest with you, this update is only going to apply to rally leads. It's going to apply to people that are currently trying to, take the one step above that so that they can win in forts and that they can, for those people, obviously, this is a freaking riot for them because now all of a sudden, just like when we had the sigil update, it basically now not only, where the sigil update was like, little tiny increases, this particular change in the gear has now, like, astronomically messed up everything. Like, now, almost everybody that's on the very high end is going to end up buying into this. Because, frankly, 10-20% is a pretty big jump for a lot of people, especially in some cases it's as much as 40%. It's heavy of an increase in most cases. But having that said, right, the one thing that I will caution you is that, yes, the goblins, evil weevils, totemists, boulders, and crabbies are coming out. So, yeah, interestingly enough, that means that you can get blazing chests, which gives you embers and speed ups. So I wouldn't blow this out of proportion and be like, oh god, it's the end. No, it's not. Frankly, if anything, this event is basically now a, hey, get your resources here event and obviously get some embers and some research items. Now, I will tell you that the loot rate on embers, okay, is mind you, I bought into it. I'm not going to deny it. All right. I have a fear drum at Mythic. Okay. Now, the one thing that I will caution you guys to, all right, is that, yes, if you want to get your gear to Mythic, all right, and in the case of, like, why didn't you do your firewall plate? Why would you do why would you do this? Well, in my opinion, all right, Mythic is going to be really important for accessories, because it's like a 10-20% increase. In this case, it's 42%. Like, that's a big deal for me because, compared to where, in this case, if we just look at the default, right, okay, just to see, exactly how much of a deal this is. All right, on a fear drum, it's 16, but at Mythic, it is 22%. And if you can stack that, that's enormous. That's a huge deal. But obviously, you do need to have your legendary rares, so that is kind of the drawback. I happen to have a rare eye, so I was like, okay, sure, why not? Why not? All right. Now, having that said, okay, I could have easily, if anything, I could keep going, get an edge all the way to gold. I've got an edge at purple right now, so there's that possibility there, obviously. But obviously, the one problem in this is you got to have 8 legendary rares, and then you got 24 blazing embers. 24, okay? Now, I'm going to tell you right now, it doesn't sound easy, but it's not with those embers, guys. That drop rate can't be very good, and I'm saying that because I was very rarely getting rares. Very, very rarely. Okay. So we'll have to wait and see and find out what that drop rate is, because I don't know if it's going to be I don't think it's very good in my opinion. But having that said, all right, if you guys do get them, I think you definitely want to do them in packs of 4 or 5. You don't want to do them in 10s and 20s because it doesn't seem to work very well. I don't know why. But maybe, if somebody else has some suggestions on that, let me know. Now, of course, I know I haven't been uploading very recently, guys, and I know that you guys are probably wondering, like, what have I been doing? You might notice my mind's changed considerably, and that's because what I've done is I'm basically building up again. I've already got 600,000 across, and I've already got 2 million across. It gives you an idea just how quick I can catch up. Obviously, yes, I did go through a little bit of a process to get that, but I mean, whatever, as long as you get to the end of the rainbow, what does it matter? But for the most part, right, when it comes to this update and everything, if anything, the average player is probably going to find this to be kind of insulting, like they've have with every other update up to this point. But frankly, all this does is widen the gap between those that are currently spending and those that aren't. All right, and yeah, undeniably, okay, the average player is still going to look at this and think, well, if you get 10% more than me, therefore you're going to be better than me. Well, that's not really quite how that works. And I've always told you guys this, and I don't know why people keep shouting this on the top of their lungs. Okay, so you get a 40% increase. That doesn't change the fact that infantry is always going to beat cavalry. That's not going to, it's never going to change that, right? Because cavalry is always going to beat infantry. Infantry is always going to, win against range. It's not going to change, right? Because infantry going against cavalry, you've never heard me say that. I just said it, and that's what people are suggesting is, there's going to come a point, guys, where if I get 7, 8, 900,000%, I'm going to somehow eventually get to a point where my fighters will beat your drakes. And that's so hard to do. I don't even think you can, to be honest with you. That's the thing, there eventually comes a point where that just isn't going to work. I mean, it will always boil down in the composition, but, okay, I think the one thing that you can certainly say without a doubt, what this update's going to do is it's going to definitely make a difference when you're doing rallies. It's going to make a hell of a difference when you're you've got somebody coming at you and you're, if you're a rally tribe, yeah, this is a little scary, right? Because that gap is going to get bigger, and it's already getting wider every day. It seems like, just a couple months ago, we had the sigil update. Before that, we had the familiar update. Now we've got this mythic update, right? And it's scary, but I've yet to notice, and at least on my end, I don't think it's that big of a deal, really, because frankly, I know this, all right? With the current composition that I have, if I had 1 million tier 4 into either one of these slots, I only need 500,000 really. But if I had 1 million in tier 4 into any one of those slots, in reinforcements, I can eat whatever they're sending so long as it's the counter or it's the same unit type. If it, for example, is cavalry and I'm using infantry, then yeah, it's going to fall. It's going to flip. It's probably not going to do so well. Now, I'm not saying that you couldn't do it. It's probably still possible because really, I'm sure you'll probably take wounds. It's just inevitable. It's just for what I do, right? And what my current situation is. I love to be able to just kind of do it on my own. So I'm going to keep building these up until I've got about 1 million. And that obviously is going to put me back up to 600 million. And that's just my preference. All right. I could depend on my guild, but I very rarely I don't like to put other people in a spot, because if they've got a pop gear, then they gotta go through and that usually takes a good number of people. So it's just not something I do. But if anything, guys, I think the major concern, if anything, for everybody with this Mythic update in particular is, obviously the attack gear, everybody's losing their mind on, right? But honestly, look at your familiar sets now. This is an astronomical big difference. All right, you go from 50 to 70. I mean, there are some increases here where it's dude, if you get this mythic gear, all right, and get your your normal pieces of gear, for example, if you're on a hunter set, I mean, come on, guys, look at that, 42% versus 30. It is a big astronomical difference. All right, for the people that have these. And frankly, even in the case of hunting horns, it's not terribly difficult to go from this to that. It really isn't. I was able to get 3 of these pretty easily, okay? So I can't imagine, all right, being that very difficult. Like, I think purple embers are definitely not out of the question. Like, I think it's definitely possible. Like I said, if you do 3 or 4 at a time, I think it's definitely possible. All right, but having that said, okay, with the way this update is, I definitely think the average player, if you guys all have, taken the time, you've probably noticed that, in the case of like the Gryphon set, for example, I mean, there's a 140% versus 100, but it's 49% there and it's 35 there. Like for people that are like mild pay to play, obviously getting 4 of these is going to be a real pain. Okay. But if, let's say you've been like somebody like me who has literally just been sitting here and hasn't really had a need for these legendaries for like God knows how long, it's like now you can basically put, maybe $5 or, something akin to that every now and then, and you can potentially get, a couple embers, all right, over a period of time. And now you go from, I'm doing 35% to 49%, like, that's a huge deal. I frankly think, in some ways the Mythic update is worth it, and in other ways it's not. It's like, I think arguably, I think it is one of those updates that like it turns everything on its head. I mean, we're gonna have to go through now. We're gonna have to start looking at, well, okay, so how many embers does it take for different types of gear? Because you'll notice that like in the case of like a Terra Lash, it's 6, but for an accessory, it's 3. If you go to like an armor piece, it's 6. If you go to like a Terra Blade, it's 1. But you notice the tier is also different, depending on the level of the actual gear as well. Like, depending on the gear type is also going to determine what kind of rare it is as well. Like, you'll notice, like in this case, it's 6, and that's and that's for for stuff like that. But you'll notice like here it's 2. There are certain gear pieces you'll notice now that are kind of like, they've got a little bit more, and that's definitely something we got to pay attention to. We'll have to pretty much look at this pretty carefully, because obviously, now people that are running around, like you guys have probably seen, are people running around with purple blight rings that now, now it's like, now you could have people that are wearing orange blight rings, and again, looking at a 21% boost versus 15, I mean, like I said, this changes a lot of stuff. And frankly, I almost wonder what this will do for wall traps. Because, I mean, look at that. It goes from 21 to 15. Like, I think wall trapping might actually have a shot at it now. Like, people that are diehard wall traps might actually have a shot at, like, blocking a good chunk of damage. But, like, one piece of gear, right, that we were like, I was like, ooh, boy, I wonder what this will do, Because, like, now if you look at, like, Burning Scrolls, for example, it's 9 to 12. 12 and 12 now per every accessory, right? So now you're doing 12 times 3 pretty much, like that's a big deal compared to where, things used to be, capped at legendary. Now, obviously, if you got Skull Crusher, okay, and you're doing 28%, look at that, 20 to 28, like, obviously, like, and I've been saying this a lot in this, with this update, is the Mythic update has definitely flipped the whole scale of things. But from what I can tell, it's usually about 10% and individual stats overall. So it's about 40% overall. But anyway, needless to say, like I said, I'm excited for it. I don't know if everyone else is, but obviously, whether you love it, hate it, let me know in the comment section below. And needless to say, I'll see you guys next time.